Okay, I thought I was done working for the night. I really want to have a scotch on the rocks. Maybe you've already had a little bit. And finish knitting my sweater and listen to my trashy audiobook. But there's some breaking news out in the last hour about ice in Minnesota. So let's cover it because we all need a little pick-me-up on a Friday night. About 52 minutes ago in the Hill, a federal judge on Friday has ordered immigration and customs enforcement officers to limit their tactics against protesters in Minnesota. U.S. District Judge Catherine Menendez wrote in her order that ICE cannot retaliate against, arrest, or detain persons who are engaged in peaceful and unobstructive protest activity. Just so you know, that order is necessary because ICE has been doing that. The judge had to say, stop fucking doing that. That's a violation of their rights. So according to this order, officers cannot use pepper spray or similar non-lethal munitions on protesters and are barred from stopping or detaining drivers and passengers in vehicles where there is no reasonable, articulable suspicion that they are forcibly obstructing or interfering with covered federal agents. This case came about because 6 people filed a lawsuit before the beginning of the year alleging that ICE officers subjected them to the use of chemical irritants, intimidation, including by pointing firearms at them. There's so many videos, y'all, on Instagram of ICE pointing firearms with live ammunition in the faces of American citizens because they're like driving or they're saying something that gets these ICE chuddies worked up, right? These guys are out of control. They have no ability to regulate their emotions. They're just like completely incapable of emotion regulation. And then the government has put firearms in their hands. That's how you ended up with what happened to Renee Good, right? Jonathan Ross couldn't control his fifis. We could argue about whether or not that was premeditated. We could argue about, you should go watch, by the way, if you've not watched the breakdown, basically frame by frame that the New York Times did of Renee Good's murder. You should go watch it from the New York Times. You should go read the whole piece. You should go watch it. It's really clear. It's really clear that he gunned her down in cold blood. But anyway, these guys, a lot of them hate women. A lot of them hate immigrants. They have no emotion regulation. They're completely out of control. They are doing their fatal live action role play. They are armed by the U.S. military. Donald Trump is using them as his private paramilitary, absolutely agents of chaos and terror in this country. Okay, I will stop editorializing and get back to the article. Right, so this lawsuit was filed in December, saying that ICE agents had been using chemical irritants, intimidation, and pointing firearms at people, detaining them, arresting them, and violating their First and Fourth Amendment rights. One of the plaintiffs is a Somali American, a U.S. citizen. And let's be really clear here that I think it's something like 95% of Somalis in Minneapolis are American citizens. These are American citizens who are being targeted by ICE because they're immigrants, because they're Black, because a lot of the women wear hijab. Like, this is just straight up racism. The video that I showed yesterday was of a Somali woman in a hijab being harassed by ICE as she calmly stood and defended her rights. She knew her rights, she articulated them, she defended them, and they had to walk away. Okay, getting back to the lawsuit, the claim is that officers grabbed protesters, including pulling a pregnant woman to the ground. One of the plaintiffs is a Somali American citizen, Abdikadir Noor. He claims he was arrested, wrongfully put into a car that was driving about 85 miles per hour. Anybody else seen those videos of ICE agents that throw people into the back of a car and then just blow the fuck out of there? A risk to everybody in these are residential areas. A risk to everybody there, no reason. That's why I say these guys are flarpers. They're fatal live action role players. They are living out their video game first person shooter fantasy. And they're getting paid tens of billions of our taxpayer dollars to do it. Noor was being driven at a high rate of speed in this ICE car. He was told he was not allowed to put on his seatbelt. He showed ICE agents his passport and claimed that they said in response, they all came here fraudulently. 15% are here fraudulently. ICE agents also said Somalis drained Minnesota and Somalis should go back home. He was detained in a violation of his constitutional rights. He was never charged. He was never given any paperwork, and then they just dumped him out. They just released him. I heard that from my Congresswoman Maxine Dexter, too, that she's gotten, I think, 9 immigrants so far released from custody in Tacoma and elsewhere because ICE is abducting them and they don't have a legal right to keep them. And when a member of Congress starts to investigate, makes a big stink, brings in the press, they have no choice but to just like dump them out because they're knowingly abducting people. It's illegal. They are illegally keeping them in these prisons and these concentration camps. They know that it's wrong. They know that it's wrong and they're doing it anyway. Okay, so this order that the Judge Menendez, dropped tonight cites other incidents of ICE activity that deters protests, where eyewitnesses describe officers pointing their weapons at protesters, using pepper spray on them, or throwing people to the ground before detaining them. The level of violence, like the out of control violence from these guys, is just, that's why I say it's hard for me to imagine that these guys don't get off on it. They get off on it. The judge is requesting sworn declarations from the acting field office director for ICE in Minnesota. And to be clear, this suit was filed before Jonathan Ross murdered Renee Good in cold blood because he was pissed that Renee's wife said something that he didn't like. Or again, we could talk about whether or not low-key ICE has been encouraged to shoot people. No evidence of that, but let's just say that I heard from an elected official that they are encouraged to incite violence. They are there to stoke violence. They're out of control. And after all, Stephen Miller and JD Vance both basically have said, like, do whatever you want. It's just a green light. Do whatever you want. Violate everybody's rights, brutalize them, murder them in the street. And the federal government will defend you. Pam Bondi, JD Vance, they'll defend you. They said they were going to defend Jonathan Ross. They're going to protect him. Hard to believe none of that is premeditated. The government is encouraging people who work for ICE to commit crimes and telling them, we'll make sure you get away with it. Right. Tricia McLaughlin and Kristi Noem have said that Renee Good was a domestic terrorist. They tried to investigate her wife, who has lawyered up spectacularly and is using this opportunity to educate people about what ICE is doing. Like her widow is continuing to defend the rule of law, continuing to fight for democracy in this moment. And of course, this is all unfolding around the same moment where Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice are clearly targeting Governor Tim Walz and Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis. Classic authoritarians gotta pull this shit, right? Intimidation, threats. It is malicious investigation and prosecution against your political adversaries or anybody who dares to defend the rule of law, which of course begs the question, why is Tim Walz not bringing in the National Guard? Why is there not more that is being done by both the governor and the mayor to defend the people of Minnesota against this tyranny, against the terror of ICE? But good first step from the judge in Minnesota. Let's see what happens now, because I'm sure ICE is going to be found in contempt of this order, like immediately. So, let's see. But good news from the judge. We do have members of the judicial system who are willing to uphold the rule of law. I know SCOTUS and their fringe, radical, activist, 6 uber-conservative justices are betraying the Constitution and betraying all of us. But there are members of the justice system who are willing to do the right thing, are willing to uphold the rule of law clearly, like Judge Menendez in this moment. Okay, now I'm going to go have scotch and I'm going to knit. Y'all take care. Enjoy your Friday night.